So the New York Times released an anti-Asian smear hit piece on Andrew Yang. And as you know, on my channel, I've been covering the New York mayoral race and how Andrew Yang is far ahead. And of course, in the race, he's in first place. Recent poll that I've looked at, the Emerson poll. And so, how do I put this? It had him in first place. So they released this piece saying, well, and it's a god-awful, disgusting hit piece. So they're attacking him because he's in first place. So they released an article saying, well, he's not good for the Asian culture, the Asian community, because he wasn't the first to condemn the Atlanta attacks on the Asian people. And look, all of those attacks were awful. Those shootings were god-awful, and I hope that person gets the death penalty. I don't advocate for the death penalty all the time, but this time I do. Same with the guy in Colorado. So they're complaining, oh, he didn't come out first, kind of condemning the attacks. What? No other person is Asian American. He's the only one. That's the first thing. Maybe Andrew Yang realized this is a huge thing. He's been put in the spotlight, and maybe since he's Asian, he wanted to take a second and talk to his team, figure out what he was going to write in, how he was going to write in, how he was going to read, because he's Asian. He wants to connect to his people. I don't know if I was Latino. If I was an Asian, I am Latino. If I was an Asian and that happened to my kind of people, of course I would take a little bit of time. I'm Latino. If that happened to my kind of people and I was running, I would take a little bit of time and say, okay, how do I make sure that mi gente, my people, my community understand I'm with them and that I condemn these attacks? So you don't have to be the first. It's just got to have meaning. Okay, I got that out of the way. And they're saying, and that second they're saying, oh, he doesn't have support amongst the Asian community in New York. He's got a 60% approval rating. 60% approval rating in the Asian community. How is that not huge support? That's part of what's putting him in first place. 60% approval rating. When you look at Asians in New York and you ask them, they actually think, yeah, I like Andrew Yang. Hell yeah. And, you would think that they're also saying, well, he's not following the stereotypes. Activists are mad because he's not saying, I'm Andrew Yang and I love math. I'm Andrew Yang and I love engineering. I'm Andrew Yang and I love engineering or doctor's notes or whatever. He's not doing that because he doesn't want to give into the culture. He's going against that tide, and the Asian community loves it. Because what do people of color, what do we like to see? People doing what others can do. Right? It's not about, oh, keep up the stereotypes. No! If anything, people want to go against the stereotypes. Because, what do you think of when you hear Asian? Oh, they must love math and economics, and they're huge into that. And academics. But then you have Andrew Yang, who's an entrepreneur, he's a self-made man, and he's running for office. Well, okay, this creates a huge problem here. Because this is going against their tide. Because they want him, the activists want him to go by their handbook and their playbook of following the tide of the culture, the stereotypes. And he's not. And that's what the Asian community loves. I spoke to a couple of my Asian friends and my friends who are Asian, and they've told me, look, we love him because he's just Andrew Yang. He's an Asian dude being in the political arena in New York City politics. We love him because of that, not because, oh, he's talking about math and he's talking about this and he's talking about that. No, we're not. They're not for him because of that. So This is a disgusting smear tactic, and they're doing this for a few reasons aside from that whole the activists being mad because he's not following the stereotype, but because he's also not in the club. He's not in New York City politics. He's not in the club. He's an outsider. He didn't come up through New York politics, so so of course they hate him. Of course they don't like him. So that's the crazy thing that's going on. And look, I mean, it's just a disgusting smear tactic. And they're not talking about his policies. They're not talking about UBI and how it could help people, or having a substantive debate about his stance on that, or on BDS, because he's an anti-BDS person. And his excuse, I'm gonna go over in maybe this week or next week, is quite stupid, quite ridiculous. So but either way, it's just a disgusting smear tactic by the New York Times, one of the world's leading organizations for journalism, an effed up journalistic organization with no integrity, and they're just a mouthpiece for the establishment, and they suck ass for putting out this smear tactic against an Asian American who's just trying to do right by his community and just running for office. Whatever your politics are, whatever policies you disagree with, he is doing his thing. And the fact that they came out with this shows they got nothing on him.